Imelda, Daddy's Little Girl. Episode 1. Tyrell met Jasmine. Tyrell lives in Delta State, Nigeria. As a 23-year-old living alone, his life was simple, exhausting, and painfully ordinary. Every evening after long hours at the small neighborhood pharmacy where he worked, he stepped outside into noisy streets already drained from the day. The humid air clung to his skin while buses blasted horns beside impatient kiki riders and roadside food vendors shouting for customers. Inside the pharmacy, he quietly counted sales while worrying silently about unpaid bills and a future that never seemed to move forward. Some days he wondered if life would ever become bigger than survival. But he kept showing up anyway, because survival was all he knew. One evening, while walking home beneath orange streetlights, his phone rang. It was Flora. Beautiful, loud, energetic, and endlessly dramatic. Flora was one of the few people who could force laughter out of Tyrell, no matter how stressful life became. "Guy, where you day?" she asked immediately. "Going home," Tyrell answered tiredly. "There's a small gathering tonight. You're coming." Tyrell laughed dryly. "With which strength? And with which money?" Flora burst into laughter. "Guy, you need enjoyment in your life before stress go finish you." Tyrell refused twice before finally agreeing reluctantly. He had no idea that one decision would completely change his life forever. Back inside his small apartment, Tyrell showered quickly while soft Afrobeats played from his phone speaker. The apartment was modest, standing fan near the bed, slightly peeling wall paint, small television, clothes folded carefully on a chair. Even though he pretended not to care much about the gathering, he still found himself taking extra time getting ready. After spraying affordable cologne onto himself, he paused briefly in front of the mirror. Something inside him suddenly felt nervous, like life was quietly preparing to change. The gathering took place at a mutual friend's apartment, filled with youthful energy and loud music. Warm dim lights glowed across the room, while Afrobeats blasted through speakers. Bottles covered tables while groups of friends laughed loudly, danced, and recorded TikToks and Snapchat videos. Tyrell greeted familiar faces casually. Then suddenly, his eyes landed on one person across the room, and everything else disappeared. Jasmine. She sat quietly near the window laughing softly with her friends. Jasmine was Lagos born and bred, but university had brought her to Delta State to study fine and applied arts. And somehow, she looked different from everyone else in the room. Not because she tried too hard, but because elegance seemed natural to her. Tyrell stared completely frozen. Then Jasmine noticed him watching her, and smiled softly. That single smile felt dangerous. Flora eventually introduced them properly. To Tyrell's surprise, Jasmine was incredibly easy to talk to. They spoke casually about Lagos life, school, music, food, and art. Jasmine spoke passionately whenever she discussed creativity and painting. And Tyrell quickly noticed something unforgettable about her. Her smile and the calm way she talked was her superpower, as her voice can melt the hardest of hearts and her smile can light up an entire city in the darkest of days. Before the conversation even ended, Tyrell already knew one thing. He wanted to see her again. Later that night, Jasmine texted him first. What started as simple conversation somehow turned into a 3-hour midnight phone call. Tyrell laid across his bed smiling endlessly while Jasmine laughed softly through the phone from her apartment near school. Neither of them wanted the conversation to end. And somewhere between laughter, teasing, and quiet conversations about life, they both started falling in love. The days that followed pulled them together naturally. Soon, Tyrell and Jasmine became inseparable. They walked together after lectures, bought roadside siya together, entered crowded kikis laughing and squeezing beside each other, shared milkshakes, and stayed awake through endless late-night gist sessions. Everywhere they went, people noticed their chemistry immediately. And for the first time in years, Tyrell stopped feeling lonely inside the world. One evening, Tyrell visited Jasmine's apartment near school. Soft music played quietly while Jasmine painted peacefully near the window. Paintings filled almost every corner of the room. Tyrell sat silently watching her, completely fascinated. Watching her create art so passionately made Tyrell realize something deeper. Jasmine was more than beautiful. She was extraordinary. One quiet evening while eating shawarma beside the roadside, Jasmine suddenly became shy. Traffic moved endlessly nearby while city lights glowed softly around them. Then quietly, Jasmine confessed, "I think I'm falling in love with you." Tyrell smiled helplessly, because the truth was, he had already fallen long ago. And beneath those city lights, two young people unknowingly began building a love story that would survive almost everything life could throw at them. Then one rainy afternoon, everything changed. Jasmine received terrible news from Lagos. Her father had died unexpectedly. The happiness around her disappeared instantly. Tyrell rushed toward her immediately as she collapsed into uncontrollable tears inside his arms. For the first time, he saw Jasmine completely shattered. And from that moment onward, he silently promised himself he would never leave her side. Tyrell traveled with Jasmine to Lagos for the burial. The atmosphere felt unbearably heavy. Family members cried softly while funeral prayers echoed through the compound. And for the first time since meeting her, Tyrell saw Jasmine completely broken by grief. How will Jasmine survive school life without her dad? Find out in the next episode of Imelda, Daddy's Little Girl.